YouTube, what's good with it, dog? We back with another video, man. And before we get into it, make sure I hit that like button, make sure I comment, make sure I share, subscribe, all that good stuff. So we finna hop straight into it. So today's video, I'll be discussing why I ever got on semen retention. Funny story, profound, and I will say that God, he definitely speaks in a funny way. He works in a very funny way because a lot of this stuff for me at the time was super random. It wasn't nothing that was just super planned out. But anywho, I remember I got on semen retention after a relationship. I was in a relationship with a woman and I loved at the time, but I remember after we broke up and we was on and off for about 2-3 years or so, you know, and I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do things different this go around. I don't know why I thought that, because I ain't never thought that in my life after getting out of a relationship. I said, you know what, I'm gonna do things different this go around. I'm not gonna touch myself and I'm not gonna do it with nobody else. I've never thought that in my life. Maybe to not do it with nobody else point, I have, but the pornography part, I ain't never thought that in my life. I was a porn addict from the age of 13 to 25 and a sex addict from the age of 14 to 25. If I didn't have one, I definitely gonna have others. So that in itself was just random. I don't know. I wasn't watching no videos. I didn't Google nothing. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do things different this go around. So then I began to analyze things. I'm like, okay, I know that we're done, so that's over with. And I know I ain't finna, you know, be with nobody else in that kind of way. So I'm like, okay, I'm cool. That's off the table. So now I'm like, okay, it's pornography. I'm like, now this here is gonna be different. I said, because this here is gonna it takes a lot less, how can I put it, time to make it happen, I'll say. Because that's another thing I was looking at as far as intimacy with someone else. I'm like, that I would have to go out of my way. I'm like, it's too much time. You know, it's like I got enough time to snap out of it before, you know, it get to that. But I say with the websites, I say, man, it's hard to pick yourself up out of that one. So anyways, I was like, okay, I got to be honest with myself. I got to know my triggers. So I started to be honest with myself and just say like, okay, you know, I got to unfollow women on TikTok, Instagram, you know, just clean up my whole algorithm. Out with the nasty, in with the things that's going to motivate me, right? So anywho, I remember just going through the motions of that, and I began to ask myself these questions. Again, I don't know why I was asking myself these questions, but it really brought forth a good amount of knowledge along the way. But I asked myself, okay, if somebody smoked every day, what would you consider them? And I just thought to myself, a smoker. If somebody smoking tree every day, they're a weed head. I said, okay, somebody play basketball every day. What are they considered? I said to myself, a hooper. I'm like, So then I say, if somebody's watching porn every day, what are they? And I say, porn addict. And then I realized in that very moment, I'm talking about 12 years of porn addict. At that very moment, I realized I was a porn addict. I say, a porn addict. I said, ain't no way. I said, nah. I said, I can't stand on that. We ain't having that. So pride kicked in, man. I said, ain't no way. I'm not proud of that. That's over. That's done for. I ain't rocking with it. I ain't doing it no more. So now I'm really locked in, you know, and I'm not even knowing what semen retention is at the time. I don't even know the term semen retention at the time. I just know I ain't doing none of that stuff. So anyways, I'm going through the motions. A week passed, good. 2 weeks passed, good. Mind you, you know, them urges was pretty tough. I ain't gonna lie. But I remember one day, and this is what things really started to shift. Because I don't know if I mentioned this to y'all, but I really prided myself on being that nonchalant guy, that guy that didn't care, that guy that was like, oh, it is what it is. And the sad part about it is my heart really was cold. It really was. And I wasn't, like I said, it's gonna start to make more and more sense. But you know, I never chose to really grieve. You know, so that wasn't really a thing for me a lot in my younger adult years. But anyways, I remember I was at work one day. 2 weeks have passed, and mind you, me and this woman, we've been on and off for the past 2-3 years. And every time we break up, I would think about her, you know, like, you know, it's recent. You know, like at the time I loved her, it's something recent happened. You're going to think about it, it's going to come across your mind, you know, you kind of hoping they reach out, you kind of want to reach out, you're trying to see like, okay, is this one of the moments where we done? Or is this one of the moments where we just, you know, take a little time to ourselves? But I remember I was at work and I was just sitting there. And like 2 weeks passed. And I told my partner at the time, I said, hey bro, me and such and such, we broke up. It's been about 2-3 weeks. I said, bro, she hasn't even crossed my mind. And he's just listening. And I'm like, bro, she hasn't even crossed my mind. And I'm like, bro, I can sit here and honestly say that I love her, but I'm like, bro, I don't feel nothing. So now I'm analyzing my heart. And I've never done that before. Because if anything, I would run from how I feel. If anything, I would numb how I feel. I would mask how I feel. But I would never sit there and actually process things. So for the first time in years, I'm actually analyzing my heart. I say, bro, I'm talking to him like, bro, I love her, but I don't feel nothing. And I said, the fact that I'm not even thinking about her. And I'm going to tell him, I said verbatim, I said, that's not normal. I said, bro, that's not normal. I said, something is off. I said, something is off, bro. Something that's not good, bro. So anyways, time passed. I'm still on semen retention. And anybody who know or anybody who have been on semen retention, you understand that it's very spiritual. I have no idea what I'm up against. I have no idea that it's demons attached to me. And I have no idea that I'm finna open myself up more to the spiritual realm. Had no idea. And then on top of that, I'm analyzing my heart. You see what I'm saying? But anyways, like I said, God got a funny way of speaking, and God got a way of really making himself known to you, because God knew what was up ahead. God knew what I was getting myself into, and God knew the deception I could have potentially fell in had I not came to Christ, had he not revealed himself to me. You see what I'm saying? But essentially, that's why I got into semen retention. You know, I got out of a relationship, and I was just thinking like, hey, you know what? No, I ain't gonna do it no more. And then after that, it's just like when lust was able to leave, whenever I wasn't feeling myself with porn or, you know, other women, you actually have time to just sit there and think. And in that moment, I was able to analyze, dang, bro, my heart cold. It's not okay. And I wasn't okay with it. And that's something that I prided myself on. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, essentially, dog, it was just one of them things where I was just taking it one day at a time, and eventually, you know, I started to look up, you know, what is this? And, you know, semen retention and all this, and I come across videos like 9 Out of Soul. I'll be watching Mark the Messenger, and eventually I started watching on Angel Time. God bless those brothers, and shout out to those brothers, and I love the work that they're doing for the kingdom. But yeah, that's why, you know, I got on semen retention, and then, you know, I started for the wrong reasons, because I was just starting, you know, essentially like I just want to stop, you know. And essentially, I ain't gonna say that's inherently bad, but when you're not doing things for the glory of God, essentially it's foolishness, you know. So eventually, I was able to get to know Christ, and then now it goes from me wanting to be on semen retention because I don't want to touch a woman or masturbate, or, you know, I want the benefits, I want the glow, I want the increased testosterone. It goes from all of that to I want to glorify God. It comes down to that simply. So that's what semen retention is about, or at least it should be, us honoring our bodies unto the Lord. Simply doing what God tells us to do. If you obey God and you're a single man, you're naturally gonna be on semen retention if you're obeying the Lord. So that's what it comes down to, man. If y'all got any questions, make sure y'all drop them down in the comments. Make sure y'all like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, I love you guys, and God bless you.